Right. Well, I have 9:32, so maybe we'll go ahead and just get started. And if people filter in, that'll be great. Welcome, and good morning. I'm so excited everyone can join us today. I mean, it's snowing here in Pittsburgh. I was telling Christopher, so I'm feeling very sad about the weather, but excited because Christopher always brightens everything up for us. So he will take good care of us this morning. Today we're talking all about recruitment strategies, specifically post-pandemic recruitment strategies. Things have changed quite a bit over the last few years, and so have our approaches. Christopher and I were talking about this a little bit before everyone joined. There have been some silver linings to the pandemic, and of course some challenges that we've all had to navigate and work through. So I want to go ahead and just share. Let me see here. There we go. Well, quick welcome. I'll do just a quick introduction of Christopher Margadonna. So I've had the pleasure of working with Christopher for, oh my gosh, almost 7 years, I think you've been at Mentor Rhode Island, right? He is the senior director. And so really, you know, he wears many hats within the organization, but among his many responsibilities, he oversees all of the partnerships for Mentor Rhode Island within the community, and he also oversees all of the training for mentors, for program staff, and volunteers. So a lot on his plate, and he is absolutely perfect to talk about today's topic of post-pandemic recruitment strategies. So I want to first just, you know, transition it over to Christopher to maybe add on to that introduction if he wants to, and kick us off and get it started. And Christopher, before you get started, would you like me, I'm gonna maybe stop sharing so we can just see everybody. Is that more helpful for you?
Sure, that works out perfectly.
Perfect.
Yeah, so excited to be with you all this morning. My name is Christopher Margadonna. I'm the Senior Director of Training and Partnerships at Mentor Rhode Island. I actually got hired at Mentor Rhode Island as the recruitment specialist. So that was my full-time gig when I first started here, recruiting mentors and doing all of that. So our task was to statewide recruit 250 mentors for our network of programs across the state. And so in that first year, you know, was kind of getting my feet wet, trying to figure out how to do this, recruited about 110 mentors for the different programs across the state. And then within year 2, was able to recruit about 180 mentors for programs across the state. So that was a lot of fun to be able to do that. And so excited to share with you just some different recruitment strategies, talk about what are the things that are ailing you as people who are doing this every day, and really just talk through some of these strategies and different things and what people are doing and all of that good stuff. So I'd love for everyone to just go around, introduce themselves, the program, right? What kind of program you have, and why you came here this morning, why you logged on this morning, what you're hoping to get out of this would be great as well. All right. So we'll just do this. I'll just call on somebody, they'll say it, then they'll call on somebody else, so on and so forth. So I'm going to call on my friend who is BBBS Pittsburgh, because their name isn't changed, so I don't know who that is.
Oh, I don't think we can hear you. I don't think your audio is working. All right. We'll let him figure that out.
Now?
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Cool. My fault. I'm logged into the wrong Zoom, so I didn't realize BBS Pittsburgh was me. But my name is Thomas Whedon. I do recruitment and outreach for Big Brothers Big Sisters Pittsburgh office. I logged on to try to get some tips to try to figure out how we can address these issues we're having of not having enough kids and mentors. Maggie.
Maggie, you want to kick us off there?
Well, sorry, I thought you said Tom. Hi, everyone. I'm Maggie. I'm also from Big Brothers Big Sisters of Pittsburgh. Happy to hear some different strategies in different ways, as Tom said. I think we are now seeing the results of COVID and the lack of bigs and littles signing up. Tom and I have a heavy lift of matching around 300 littles in Biggs between now and the end of the year. So any kind of pointers to get one kid off our waiting list and get one more volunteer enrolled is what we're here for. So thanks for taking the time and inviting us.
Oh.
I'm going to go to Christine.
Hi, Maggie. Good to see you.
You too.
Christine here from Strong Women. We also are realizing that instead of getting easier, things are getting harder. And these are the exact conversations we've been wanting to have with individual organizations. So we really appreciate you bringing a discussion forum, format. Hoping we can find some answers and some ways to support each other.
Kick it over to Allison.
Yeah, sorry, popcorn, Allison. There.
Good morning. I'm Allison. I'm also from Strong Girls. And I think similar to Christine, we're just excited to grow our program as much as possible and serve more mentees. So yeah, I'll popcorn over to Michi.
Hey there, also from Strong Women, Strong Girls. There's a few other of us today on the call. Echoing what's already been said, this has been a big thing on my mind recently of how to get more mentors involved so we can get the mentees we want to serve. So super appreciate y'all having this conversation. I'm gonna keep with the Strong Women. Kayana.
Good morning. My name is Kayana McGowan. I am a program manager here with the Pittsburgh office. And same of what my coworker said, this is a conversation that's been weighing heavy on our hearts. We are also seeing the effects of post-COVID with our numbers for mentees and mentors so low. So these are the types of spaces that we want to be in. And I will kick it over to Dominique.
Hi, everyone. I'm also from Strong Women, Strong Girls. I'm the community engagement coordinator here in Boston. And I find that we're having the same challenges, like as my other coworkers said, really being able to not only retain mentors, but also find them in the first place. It's been such a challenge since COVID started. And I'm looking forward to discussing ways and opportunities that we can create together. So I will pass this to Rebecca.
Hi, thank you. I had to unmute there. I'm Rebecca Piarco-Shelley. I am the mentor coordinator for an agency named Justice Works Youth Care. I'm in Eastern Pennsylvania in Chester County. And I'm in a similar boat as many people have already spoken, but with a little bit of a twist. Oddly enough, I am getting an increase in mentees that are looking for mentors. So I've got a waiting list of boys that are looking for mentors, male mentors and male mentors that look like them. And so I have mentors that are waiting, remarkably so, but they're female mentors. Right. So I've been very fortunate in recruiting female mentors. I'm onboarding like 3 or 4 in the current time frame right now. I am in great need of male mentors, men of color, bilingual men. And that is my biggest struggle in this area. So pointers, help, anything. Hey, please help me. Discussion, everything, please. Let me see. I have to flip my screen to see who to ask next. Let me see. I'm not sure. My screen.
Did we catch
can't see who needs to go next.
I think we caught pretty much everyone. My name's Kristen Allen. I'm the director of marketing and development at the Mentoring Partnership here in Pittsburgh, and I'm a colleague of Christopher's. And another one of my colleagues is also signed in, although I don't know who it is. So we'll see if she'll join us later. She's anonymous. But I think we caught everybody else. Did we miss anybody? We're good. All right. Thanks for doing that quick round robin. That helps us just to see, who's in the room with us and just kind of get the conversation going. So Christopher, take it away.
Yeah, so it was nice to kind of hear again who's here and who's in the room and what you guys are looking for. It's also kind of the word is not exciting, but like different to hear that you're also having a hard time recruiting mentees as well. That's also another kind of thing because we do not have that problem here. So I'm glad that that is a problem for some of you guys. I think what we need to figure out kind of first is how you are recruiting at the moment or what your recruitment strategies already are, because I don't want to tell you something maybe that you already know or are doing or seeing works. So what are people doing that is seeming to work right now? What is working for people? What are different things that you're doing right now or maybe is not working, but what are you doing to recruit mentors at this time? What do those strategies look like already?
Do you want that in chat or just to kind of speak out?
Oh, just speak out. Don't write anything in the chat. I don't look in the chat. No.
I love it. I love it. Okay, so since I unmuted, and I apologize if someone else unmuted, I'm on my phone in my car, sitting in a parking lot doing this. So I'm apologizing now. If I do anything that's rude, I don't mean to be rude. My recruitment strategies have been to network, word of mouth. I go to every community event I possibly can get my face at. I sit at tables. I have a bunch of PR stuff. I bring sign-up sheets. I'm on social media. I have a QR code for people to sign up, mentees and mentors. That's kind of like what I'm doing. I go to as many community meetings as I can where there's a community engagement with multiple providers, and I do my spiel, hand out my flyers, my business cards, yada, yada. Yeah, that's what I'm doing. All right, let me put on mute.
So similar to Rebecca, we're doing in the Pittsburgh office, we're doing a lot of the same things. Going to community events, making sure that people, start to recognize us. I think, one thing that Maggie will say is because of the name that we have, I think sometimes we assume that people know what we are and who we work with and what we do. That's not the case. So I think to be involved as much as possible. I'm not saying this has been successful, obviously because our numbers are down. But to be involved in the community as much as possible. I've gotten to the point now where my face is very recognizable along with the brand. But that again, that's not to say that we're having success with that. I would be interested to see what happens in the summer when kids are out of school. I think that we got a lot of inquiries last year from back to school events. But again, I think, again, like Rebecca said, community events, as many presentations as somebody will let me give, and just being involved in the communities that we're trying to service as much as possible.
So I think I would echo a lot of that. I, in my position as PCEC, work less on the actual recruitment than my program managers, but I know we have a lot of the same things that we do, but we also have this extra layer of our mentors being college women and needing to have this specific kind of strategy for recruiting them, especially in such a short amount of time. They come to campus and they have like a 2-week turnaround of committing, training, and getting into those classrooms. I think that's an exaggeration. It's not 2 weeks, but like it is a lot. So there's that whole other layer. And honestly, we're also working on incentives, things like that in the bigger picture and what we'll be able to offer our mentors in the future. So
Christine, what do you mean incentives? What do you incentives as being a mentor, or what kind of incentives are you guys offering, or what do you mean by that?
Yeah, currently we are not offering incentives outside of, being sure to educate them on how to use things on their resume and in their interviews and things like that. We are currently not doing that. But a great deal of the feedback has been based on the commitment that we ask of them. And, a lot of them have executive roles and outside roles outside of the actual mentoring. We've been looking into what we can do, including, credits and things like that. So, but it takes a lot of time to figure that all out. So that's definitely not something that's happening in the fall.
Sorry, I was on another page. I was looking at some stuff. Yeah, these are all great things to hear, that people are out there, they're talking to people, right? They're in the communities, talking to folks. I'm like trying to decide what I want to go, which way I want to go here, how I want to talk about this. Because I don't think what you're doing is not incorrect, right? You're doing the thing that you need to do. It's how we go about it, and really understanding too, who are the people that we want to get at, right? Because that's going to be the most beneficial for us, is if we know exactly who we're looking for. So with networking and word of mouth, we're out there, we're looking for different people. But if I am just at the grocery store looking for somebody, right? Like, it just seems like I'm looking for a warm body to match with a young person, right? It doesn't really matter. I just need a mentor. I need an adult who cares about working with kids, and I'm going to find this person here. And that might work sometimes, but you're going to have a harder time coming up with a person who's going to stick around. With attending events, what you're seeing with attending events is that there are two different types of events that you're attending. So you're either looking at awareness events that are just to talk about who you are, what you do, get people to know you as an agency. And then there are those recruitment events, right? Where you're going specifically to find specific people that are going to be matched with these young people. And those are figuring out which event you're going to and how you're going to talk to these people, right? We're always looking for mentors, absolutely. But, I was telling my staff the other day, I said, if you're going to go to a family fun event in a community, you're more apt to get mentees than you are mentors. That's just how it's going to be, because those people who are coming in aren't thinking that they're going to be ready to volunteer or give back. You may get one to sign up, and that's wonderful, but that's not the reason why you're there. You're there to show that you are a community staple, that you're there to support these people, right? And so figuring out how you tailor your message when you're at those events is going to be really crucial, again, to how people perceive you and how they then engage with you further. When we look at social media, oh yes, I'm sorry, Thomas.
Yeah, if I can, I just want to hear somebody else's opinion on this. So kind of piggybacking on what you're saying, I think something that we're trying to move, instead of just going to these events and asking for things, right? I think one of the things that I'm trying to do is build relationships within the community, and I guess more so play the long game. And I understand that we won't see the results of that till further down the road, but I'm interested to see or to hear what anybody else's opinion on that would be. I understand that you might not see numbers go up within this year or maybe next year or even the following, but do we feel like that's effective, and is that something that other agencies are doing?
I'll kick us off and just say that I think you definitely, it's a good strategy, right? I mean, it's very hard when we talk about driving people to action. It's hard, right? I mean, you're lucky if you talk to someone and they sign up right on the spot, but especially when we talk about mentoring, which is a commitment, right? It's not like it's a one and done. You show up somewhere once and you're done. It is a longer term commitment. So I think you absolutely have to look at it as a long game. I mean, obviously for purposes of numbers and, even just one kid on a waiting list is one too many. So, we wish it were shorter, and we look to do things that we can maybe shorten that gap. But I think as you're kind of thinking through strategies, not getting discouraged that it's turning into a long game, because repetition is key. When people see you continually out in the community, they're going to remember you. They're going to remember the organization. They're going to learn more and get more touch points with you, which drives them along that awareness continuum to eventually act in some way, whether maybe it's a donation at first because they just don't feel like they have the time right now. So that's kind of like a quick way that they could support. And then we just keep kind of like stewarding them along the journey to hopefully that end goal of like, yes, I'm ready to sign up. And it brings up another thing, which I think, I don't know, Christopher, you might mention this later, and I don't want to derail us, but it's important to think about where you are, to Christopher's point, as far as like, we want to make sure we're sharing the right message for where we are. I think too, it's important to understand not only who the ideal is as far as like knowing who your current volunteers are and who's sticking with you, but also what barriers are you hearing to people getting involved and working to address those, working to to proactively bring those up and make that part of your messaging and your storytelling. So that's just one thought and opinion. So I'll let someone else jump in.
In terms of the long game, I get what he's saying, because I go back to the same monthly meetings month after month after month. And I always, I mean, even some people are there month after month as well, and they know my face now and they know what I'm going to stand up and talk about. But what I also do is show a commitment to their causes. I mean, it's a lot of commitment to community interaction, taking a lot of time that doesn't necessarily exactly look like recruitment or awareness. Well, I guess it does look like awareness, to Chris's point. Like I go and volunteer at events that these other organizations are running to get myself out there. And I guess that's really awareness. And sometimes I get somebody from that. It's funny because I didn't think about it as awareness and recruitment as two different things. I always saw myself as recruitment at everything I do. But I think I see the distinction. But yeah, the long game, oh my goodness gracious. Yes, the long game is definitely how I've been rolling to try to get people. And it's interesting when you talk about the barriers and what the barriers are, like, it's interesting because I'm not sure what the barriers are. Like, I don't have anybody telling me why they won't.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, that would be like, like the magic potion, right? So I don't know how to find that out, but that's my little 2 cents on that.
Yeah, I was watching the news the other day. I forget which basketball player was doing an interview, and one of the reporters was like, obviously their season ended, and the reporter was like, yeah, so, was this season a failure? And the guy was like, do you go to work every day? And like, you don't get promoted every day, but do you consider that a failure? No, of course not. Every single day you're doing the work, it's pushing you closer to something bigger, right? So mentoring in and of itself is a long game. And I know sometimes that's really hard, especially when we're looking at mentor recruitment and we have kids that need mentors, and that's tough. We want to be able to get them off the waiting list immediately. And so I think it's kind of, playing that strategy of like, yes, if we can move things along faster and get people, to commit sooner, great. But every single thing we're doing, going to those monthly meetings all the time or showing up at those community events, that's getting you one step closer. And I think it's looking at it as that continuum. It's all important. It all matters. And, it's kind of keeping people moving along that journey with you. Christopher, sorry, I didn't mean to jump in.
No. You're all saying wonderful things and all stuff that really matters with all of this. When we're talking about the barriers to being a mentor, right? What are those? What are those barriers? We're talking about people who don't have the time, right? They don't have the time to mentor. They can't give an hour a week. That's not something that they think that they can fit in their schedule. So we need to help them to understand, how can they do that? How can they fit in their schedule, right? We say we are different as an affiliate. We run school-based mentor programs. So when I was also recruiting, I was recruiting for our school-based programs as well. So we were saying, hey, do you have lunch every day? Yes, you do, right? So you can have lunch with a child, right, in a school, right? And we'll find you a school. It's only 45 minutes a week, right? So it takes 7 minutes to get to the school from your work. You sit there 45 minutes, 7 minutes, get back, there's your hour, right? And so we made it digestible for folks. I think also a lot of the times people think like mentor is such a big, scary word to people. Like, what is a mentor, right? What is a mentor? When we think about a mentor, a lot of people think about, Yoda and Luke, right? Yoda's so wise. He has all this knowledge he's going to dump into this young person. When really being a mentor is about showing up, right? Being kind, compassionate, empathetic, being a good listener, someone who's fun, who likes kids. And people have some, if not all of those qualities. Therefore, they are already a mentor. right? They are already somebody who is engaging in that way. And when I do recruitment presentations, I make sure to have that conversation with people that like you are already a mentor. And even if you don't have the title of mentor, people still look up to you as a mentor informally. So why don't you just do it formally, right? In a program with a child who actually could use your help, right? It's about reframing it for folks. The one thing I have learned is I don't say that mentoring is easy. And I think that's a lot of the times what we do. Oh, it's so easy to mentor. I don't know if any of you have actually been a mentor and realized it's not easy, right? And so I think we are selling people this marvelous experience, but we can't lie about that, right? We can't be the used car salesman and sell them this idea of mentoring because it's not going to be what they want. And then they're going to not stick around and you're not going to be retain those people. Yeah.
I was going to jump in and say too, so I mean, it's our job obviously to tell the story, and that's important. And I think too, especially when we think about being out in the community, people expect us to say all the great things, right? Like, I mean, we're there to recruit or to get people on board or share more info. One of the things that we found really helps is getting others to be ambassadors of our organization. So, you know, who do you have that is currently mentoring that has actually, you know, they've maybe had some of those same concerns about like, I don't know how I'll fit this into my schedule. What could I possibly share? Like, I'm not a mentor. I have no idea. They're doing it, and their chances are a lot of the people that are, you know, kind of kicking the tires and like thinking like, I don't know, should I get involved? Hearing it from someone that had those same concerns they do and has, you know, kind of gone through with it and is currently involved and is doing it and making it work. I think that goes a really long way to kind of reinforcing what we're saying about the opportunity and why it matters. It's just another way to kind of address those quote unquote barriers, whatever they may be. It's just seeing someone that's actually doing it. So taking stock of the mentors that you have now that are involved and asking them like, hey, what barriers did you, like what concerns did you have before you signed up? Or why do you keep mentoring with us? Like just kind of getting those nuggets and finding cool ways to share them, whether it's asking them to come to events that you're going to be at and just talk with people. Maybe it's quick video snippets that you're sharing, you know, on Reels or on social media. But that's an untapped audience that we can't forget is the people that are currently mentoring with us.
Any questions or thoughts on things that I've said already?
I think just to like what I'm hearing right now on our end from Strong Women, all we've heard about the barriers is, you know, compensation. And especially when we're trying to diversify our mentor base. And that is where our discussions of incentives even came from, because obviously we like to think that there don't need to be incentives, you know, in this situation, that it's just humans helping humans. But that has been a huge concern for us. They're college women. They don't have any money. They don't have any time. And particularly, you know, college women of color, they have a different, many of them have a different situation going on as well. It's an extra barrier. So, you know, I'm assuming, you know, based on your reaction, Maggie, that Big Brothers is also not offering incentives. So like, how do we balance that? Like listening to what they are asking for, but still keeping like the pure nature of mentorship.
Yeah, you know, so I always go back to the good old elements of effective practice. That is I fall back on that. That is my love, my everything. And so what we talk about with the elements of effective practice right here is that one of the enhancements is that we are working to provide benefits of mentoring to those people who want to volunteer, right? So what does that look like? And so what are the benefits? Like you were saying, it's a good resume builder. It's good with that. But do you offer them a free lunch every week when they go and mentor? Or are you offering them a t-shirt, or is there a cool trip at the end? Or like, right, like what are those things that are also just like not paying somebody? Right? Like what's something else that you could provide them? Do they get college credit for it? Right? Like can they get a credit for doing this. So I think there are lots of different ways that we can incentivize without actually paying like a stipend of some type. You know, is it a transportation stipend? So they're getting reimbursed for their gas or different things along those lines. Those are all different ways to say, ooh, I want to mentor at that program because they have good benefits, right? As opposed to this other program that doesn't provide me anything. One program used to do like, they used to have to meet twice a month, and once a month they would offer like a free activity that the pairs could do. So that was something so that they didn't have to spend any money out of pocket. Or if they do spend money out of pocket, the program will reimburse them. So, I mean, what are those benefits that you're offering to somebody? And different benefits are going to appeal to different folks, right? Everybody wants to get paid for their time. But again, this is a volunteer opportunity. And so what does that look like? And how can you incentivize and stipend folks a little differently? Yes, Rebecca. You're muted, sorry.
Wait a minute. Okay. Can you tell me the name of that book real quick again? And Elements of Enhancing.
Oh my God. The good old Elements of Effective Practice.
Good elements of effective practice.
For mentoring.
For mentoring. Okay.
And you can actually, and I'm sure Kristen has some connection to it or has a file or something, or.
I'm gonna put a link in the chat, but you can also always reach out to us. We run trainings on this and got tons of information. So links in the chat, but reach out for more if you need that.
Okay. All right. And then the other thing I was going to say now, maybe we're an unusual beast over here in Chester County, Pennsylvania. We're very fortunate that we have some financial means by which we reimburse the mentors for the cost incurred when they go out on an activity. We're very fortunate that way. And we kind of like operate, if you will, like Big Brothers, Big Sisters. It's a one-on-one program. It is a program whereby all the referrals come in from children and youth services of our county. So the children come in through, you know, they're involved in one way or another through them. The other thing that we do, which, you know, maybe could be a good start for a program, is we reimburse for all onboarding costs. So while we know that some of the clearances that we get are volunteer and they're free, the you know, the fingerprinting is not free. We do a driver record clearance, that's not free. So, you know, we also pay for the drug screen so that the mentor does not have to pay for the drug screen. So and I have to tell you, I don't even know what that costs, and I've been doing this for 3 years. So, because our agency just orders it for them. But that I think is helpful because, you know, fingerprinting here where we are, I don't know if it's a national norm or not, but that's like $26. And then to get your driver's license clearance, you know, your record, we do a 3-year look back. And that is anywhere between $11 and $14. I don't know why it varies, but it does. So, you know, you're giving somebody back like close to $40 that they put out of their pocket. So, I mean, I don't know if your program, you know, could just start with reimbursing of clearances, or, you know, we do not reimburse for gas or mileage, and we make that very clear up front. But we do for the other things. So we're lucky that way. You know, I don't know if there's somewhere you can apply for grants, you know, that kind of thing, to maybe get a little bit of money for at least the onboarding cost. You know, not sure what your onboarding criteria is, but I'm sure it's very similar.
We also reimburse for clearances. We, depending on the chapter and the need, we will pay for like Ubers to get to and from our sites. We also give certificates at the end of the year just to say thank you. And we do scholarships for mentors. So I think there is a little bit of ways that we do incentivize. It's just we're not seeing the turnout that we would have hoped. So it's like, do we incentivize more, or do we continue with what we have and try other things?
The other thing with incentivizing is that well, one, is that listed somewhere, right? Do people know that those are the incentives that they get for being in your program is one, because if people just don't know what they don't know. But the other thing is that we don't want to incentivize so much that we get the wrong person to mentor, right? Because we want them to volunteer because, Christine, they're a good person. They want to give back. They want to do the thing. And so we just don't want to have someone who's going to do it because at the end of the year, you know, they go to Six Flags and that's the thing and that's what they're waiting for. I don't know, right? Like you want someone who's going to want to be there and help a young person, right? And that these are the cool incentives that you get for doing that. Granted, you'll find that all out in the screening process, right? When we go through and you say, oh, you know, you ask a question, why'd you want to be a mentor? Well, I heard you go to Six Flags every year and that's pretty cool, right? So, you know, those are the types of things that you'll figure out, but you never want to incentivize too much because on the other side, then people are only doing it because of what they're going to get out of it that's tangible in that regard. So it's that fine line of going back and forth of, right, of being able to reimburse and to do some certain things, but also making sure that, right, you're not going completely in the other direction and just giving them things to have them show up, because those are not the people we want in our program. Great. Other questions around incentives or other things to say, or I don't know, Big Brothers, Big Sisters, if you have anything you want to add to that specific topic, you don't have to.
I mean, we don't really offer too many incentives. I think a lot of, like Rebecca is saying, we do refund you for doing the clearances. So we don't want you to feel like you have to pay for that, but we don't refund for gas and mileage. One thing that I've been thinking on, throughout this conversation, I think some of the things, and it's interesting that Rebecca has the same problems that we do, and she's saying that her program is similar to Big Brothers Big Sisters. The bigs of color. So we have probably like 60, somewhere between like 60 and 80% of our littles are Black boys and girls. And then like 80% of our mentors are white, which isn't an issue, but within our community, we would like to see more representation. And I think that as I'm going through this process of building these relationships within the community, one of the things that I've noticed that as Black men, I think we tend to, a lot of us come from single parent households, right? So we watch typically our mother deal with 1, 2, 3 kids, right, by herself. And I think that the issue is that a lot of us are maybe intimidated or scared of the fact that maybe that single parent might expect more of us if we sign up to be a mentor, which is one of the things that I address in my pitch, right? So I know that Strong Women, Strong Girls is, a little bit different, but I think for us, we're trying to get men in the program, specifically Black men. And when I present to these communities, I just try to be honest and transparent that, we understand that maybe you think that this mother is going to expect you to be a father figure, which isn't the case. But we try to let these people know that you're really just another person for this kid to lean on. Like, we're big brothers, big sisters, but we don't want you to think that you're a big brother or a big sister, right? You're more of a friend. So I think being honest and transparent. Again, I can't tell you whether or not this is going to work because I'm still early in this long game. But I don't know if that was helpful, but that's what I'm trying to do and what we're trying to do over here.
We had a similar situation. We had this was years ago. We had a mentor with a program, again, going back to like, hey, we want to bring someone in that's actually, has volunteered as a mentor and sharing their story. And throughout the course of the story, that, this man was matched with his mentee and they had a great relationship. And he was like, I feel like I'm like a father figure to this child, thinking that it was like a really great thing, but it actually had like the opposite effect, because people were like, I don't know if I can sign up to be that. Like, that's like, that's a huge commitment and that's scary. Like, I'm not sure I can do that. So, I think, Thomas, to your point too, it goes back to being like honest and transparent about what the opportunity is, and that mentoring, again, that word is kind of amorphous and means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. So, boiling it down to it's about relationships. It's about, kind of surrounding kids with a lot of different strong relationships. I think has helped, but it's interesting when you consider that kind of perspective and messaging, like it can fall on, it can hit people in different ways, I guess.
The only other thing that I'll say is that, so I was a little in Big Brothers Big Sisters from the time I was 6 until 18. And my big was never somebody that I confided in, right? He was just somebody that was like able to get me out of my home environment, which is what I needed at the time. So I think if you press those things, if you tell them that, like, hey, again, you're not supposed to be this kid's father or this kid's brother, or I think just being honest and letting them know that you're just someone that needs to be consistent. A lot of times, and I'm a big now too, and a lot of times, like, my time with Leo is not spent, like, we don't talk the entire time. I just kind of let him just be, do what you want as long as you're safe or cool. And I think that's important to let these mentors know, potential mentors.
We have had a new person join the club. So Gabriella, hello. Could you just introduce yourself and what program you're a part of, and would just love to know a little more about you.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. I'm Gabriella Davis. I am the program manager here at Crossroads Foundation. And we have a peer mentoring program and a professional mentoring program. So yeah, I'm just here to get some ideas for our recruitment and just for the programs in general.
So I think messaging is just really, really important, as we were kind of just saying with that, of like, well, you are called Big Brothers, Big Sisters, right? There's very much that familial feel to it. And so, I mean, I know you're not going to change your name, right? But like, how do you then help somebody to understand that, like, well, you are not becoming a family member, right? But a support for that young person. I think also by saying you are not the only support for that young person. You shouldn't be the only support for that young person. But also, when in that process, we talk about it at the mentor training, right? That's when I have that conversation of like, you're not going to be the only person supporting this young person, or you should not be the only person, right? You're one piece of this heart, right? And how do you then help people to understand that, or that you don't need to solve all the problems? I call mentor central admin, right? Everything's coming into them, right? They're like Grand Central Station. Everything comes into them, but then they're farming it out to the program coordinator, to the school psychologist, to the parent, right? They're telling the people who need to know the information, right? So that that child can get those supports and services they may need outside of mentoring. So how do you get someone to understand that that's their role, right? Is a support and not this be all end all kind of person. And that's where a lot of this comes in, right? It's like, well, we want more mentors, but it's like, but how are we marketing our messaging and the kind of things that we're saying to folks? All right. Other things in particular that people are kind of thinking, or other things that have kind of spurred from this conversation, other things you're thinking about, other things that you're like, well, I really just have this particular problem that I need solved, or, that type of thing.
I'm curious what we are also really trying to pour into our mentor resources. And obviously TMP has been huge, instrumental in that, but especially with things like the gun violence and sexual assault and things in schools. I know we're really looking to bulk up our resources and what we're outwardly offering to our college women as far as how to, handle the conversations and situations they're experiencing in the, because our college women work in the classrooms with the elementary kids. So if anybody has any thoughts on that, especially like what experts are we looking to maybe in Pittsburgh for those materials and things like that?
Yeah, Christine, we're in the same boat too, especially, as an intermediary, obviously, like we love our own resources and we love to develop based on what we know, but we don't know what we don't know. And particularly around just fully an example with youth mental health. That's been a big topic for us over the last few years. We've spent a lot of time developing our own resources, but there's a lot of really great organizations doing great things in that space right here in our community too. So I think that's where, when we think about resources, we think about, okay, what do we have the knowledge and expertise in-house for? Like, what are we subject matter experts in, and how can we develop resources that will be helpful? But then those community partnerships are where that also plays a huge role, is just, finding out what's out there. How can we kind of cross promote? Like, what sort of resources are we looking for that you can help us with, and vice versa. We're trying to do a lot more of that as far as resources, and like on our online resource library, we're sharing a lot of things that are coming from other organizations, partner organizations in the community, because that helps everybody, right? It's a win-win. So I do think that's, in looking at developing resources, that's something that we're always considering does it make sense for us to develop this, or does it make sense for us to amplify something that already exists?
And in Mentor Rhode Island, we do mentor professional development every month. So we're doing these different workshops every month on different topics. And sometimes we lean on our mentors, right? Because they have expertise in a certain field or something. So we'll lean on them. But we do go to community partners and offer a lot of that stuff as well. So I think just figuring out, and again, that's another benefit, is that, to go back to the recruitment piece, is that we offer professional development to our mentors, right? So they're not left alone on an island. Because I think a lot of the times we forget that. Like, I mentor, and then I come back to an office full of other people who understand mentoring, right? And a lot of times mentors don't get that, right? They mentor and then they go home to their spouse or whomever, and they can't talk about it. There's no one to talk about it with. And so then it doesn't feel like they're a part of anything, because they're not being brought together. So that's another time to think about, hey, are you bringing your mentors together at some point so they feel supported? And that's on that retention piece, right? It's great to do the thing because I want to do the thing, but I also want to feel connected to other people who are also doing the same thing that I'm doing. And so that's also kind of incorporated in there. Again, a lot of this is that long game, right? In that, like we keep saying today, that if you provide that for folks, then they're going to hopefully stick around because they feel a sense of community and that they're a part of something. So those are other things to think about as well. I go back to just knowing who you want to be a mentor in your program is just so crucial, because if you know who you want and the type of skills and attributes you want them to have, that's how you're going to easily find those people in the communities, because you're going to go where those people are. Again, makes sense, right? If you are looking for college age girls, right, you're going to go to colleges and find those women, right? And have those conversations. But are there other places outside of colleges, right, that you can go to, that you can be at? There's lots of things to think about there. I think with Big Brothers Big Sisters, because it's such a large umbrella of folks that you're looking for, you're just looking for somebody, right, to be matched, who cares about working with young people. But if we can be really specific, I know, Thomas, you're talking about going into communities where there are people of color and recruiting there, right? Going to where people are at, meeting people where they're at in their communities and saying, hey, you have a special gift that we need, because there are young people out there that need you. Does anyone ever talk about their wait list with folks? Is that a conversation that people have? Do they ever say, hey, we have so many youth waiting. We have this many youth that are waiting for a mentor. Is that something people do? Yeah, Thomas?
Yeah, I think people are shocked. Usually they give it like a shocked face or they gasp. But that doesn't mean that they do anything.
Well, so I go back and forth on that, right? Because we say throughout the state, because we're an intermediary, just like Pittsburgh, right? Like TMP, we say, oh, well, we have 900 kids throughout the state of Rhode Island who need a mentor. Well, if I tell you that, and you're going to be a prospective mentor, and you hear that I tell you that there are 900 kids throughout the state, you're like, oh, well, I can't do anything about that. That's a lot of kids, right? Like that, I can't be one of 900 that are going to help. That's too big of problem. But if I tell you that we have a program in Warwick, Rhode Island, and if I say, hey, in Warwick, we have 10 kids on the wait list, right, that are in need of a mentor, do you know of somebody else who could be a mentor? And now look at, that's 1/5 of our wait list already cut off because you and a friend decided to be a mentor, right? There's more impact on their side. It's a psychological game, everybody. Like getting into people's heads and figuring out, right? Like 900 sounds like a lot. You're doing the exact same thing, becoming a mentor, and it's a shocking number, right? It shocks people. You're right. It's definitely, the shock factor is always fun. But I want people to say, oh, I can be one of 10, right? I can do that. Oh, I know somebody. I always say, if everybody in this room became a mentor, we would eliminate the wait list. I would not have to go out tomorrow and look for more mentors. I still would, because of course, maybe I'm lying to them, but that's okay, right? But we need to figure out, we need to get people to become mentors, and how do we do that, and what does that look like? So it's something to think about too. You want it to seem obtainable to a person, right? That it matters.
Sorry, that goes back to making the whole thing accessible, right? Like, again, it's all about perspective. Like that 900 number, it might as well be 1 million, right? Because as one person, I'm like, okay, that's a drop in the bucket. Like, I was already on the fence anyway. But if you're, isolating a specific program or a specific neighborhood, and hey, we need 5 spots. Hey, okay, I could do that, and I have a couple friends. And that was something else when Christopher was talking that kind of sparked for me, was just, we hear the word peer, so we think of peer mentoring, peer fundraising campaigns, but what about peer recruitment campaigns? And that goes back to, again, activating that network of mentors that you already have. So asking your mentors, hey, look, we're gonna host this event, like bring a friend. And it's just about like very low pressure, like meet all of us, learn a little bit more about it, and just kind of there's a tangible, actionable way that you can put your current mentors to work. That's not a heavy lift, but also kind of, at the very least, you're raising awareness and spreading the word. But if they're bringing a friend and they're saying, well, I know my friend's been doing this for a while, it makes the whole experience more accessible, which could really kind of, increase the odds that maybe they'll sign on, if not now, then at some point down the road.
The ask is so important, and sometimes it can be helpful too to have young people in mind, or have young people on your wait list that you already know you could match with somebody, right? I had this woman I used to work with when I worked at my college. She was wonderful. She was a mentor to all of us in the office. She was phenomenal. Actually, today's her birthday, so I will need to text her now that I've said that. But I just love her so, so much. She was so willing to give everything for us and all of that. So when I joined this job, I said, you need to be a mentor, like a formal mentor. And she's like, no, I don't want to do that. Okay, right? You're already doing it, but like, okay, that's fine. But then I had a program, and I found this young woman, and I said, and they had very similar qualities and likes and things like that. So I went back to this woman and I said, I have a young person for you. This is what they're like. This is what they do. This is what they need. Would you mentor this young person? And it was like, without skipping a beat, she said, absolutely. Right? So having young people ready for people that you know of, right? Knowing your young people so well that when you see a person who matches those qualities, saying, hey, actually, I've got a young person on my wait list, and here's what it looks like. That works a lot of the time as well. I had another person that, again, had talked to, playing the long game with, created a relationship with, was talking to. And then I found out there was an 11th grader who loved baseball, but was just really detached and all of that. This other guy had played baseball all through high school and college. And I said, hey, I know we've talked about being a mentor, but I do have a young person for you. Here's who they are. Here's what they like. And again, without skipping a beat, yes, I'll be a mentor to that child. Right? It's really about getting so specific and knowing your people so well that you can find these people and pull and draw on your networks, right? Rebecca, the people you're meeting when you're going out, Thomas, same thing with you. When you're going out and you're meeting these people and you're having those conversations, right? then you can go back to that circle of people that you go to every week, Rebecca, and say, oh my God, Charlie, I have this little boy that I know that I think would be perfect for you because you both love this thing and this is what you guys are like, and he's like this, and this is his family life, and I think you guys would just mesh so well together. And how can Charlie not say yes when you've picked out a young person specifically for him? Right? Like, it's about like, wow, they thought of me for this young person. It feels more special. It feels more selective in that way. Again, more psychology, everybody. I promise you I don't have a psych degree. I just play one on TV. So I don't know if that helps or if that's helpful or if I'm just speaking crazy. Someone say something, honestly.
I mean, it's resonating for me. Oh, go ahead, Gabriella.
I was just gonna say, no, that makes a lot of sense. Because yeah, that would make someone feel special and like more connected to the person when you're able to give them like a little bit of backstory and say like, this is how you can help this person because they need these things. So that makes sense to me.
Playing to people's strengths, right? And it all goes back to telling the story too, which is important for multiple reasons, right? I mean, so we were talking about this, our last Lens meeting was on messaging. And we were saying, yeah, you know, it's so often when we're presented with an opportunity to tell our story, we're scrambling to find, you know, a mentor to you know, share their name with a reporter who they might want to talk to, or we're scrambling to find stories. And it's like, we should constantly be looking for these opportunities, whether it's, you know, learning more about our mentors or learning more about kids on our waiting list, but we should always be kind of building this repository of information that can help us tell our story in a variety of different scenarios. And obviously recruitment is one of those important scenarios. So I think we're, you know, it puts a face to our work, right? I mean, not just saying, hey, we've got kids on a waiting list. I mean, no, we have a kid on our waiting list who loves football, or, you know, we have a kid on our waiting list who loves jewelry making. I'm making it up, but just, you know, putting that face to our work, I think is so important to bringing it to life and showing people that mentoring happens in so many different ways. And there are a lot of different ways to plug in, which I think is also critically important.
I think a lot of the times too, what we do is we also find a mentor or we find someone who wants to volunteer and we make them fit into the box of fitting in with our program, right? And sometimes just because someone wants to volunteer doesn't mean they're the best volunteer for your program. And so I think also leaning on TMP to say, hey, I have a mentor, but I just don't think they're the best for us. You know, do you know of another program in the state or in this area that could, right, work with this volunteer? I think we also need to be really specific on that, because then what ends up happening is we put them through the onboarding process, we reimburse them for all of their time, and then they go through the training, they get matched with a young person, and then less than a year happens and they stop because it's not the program they wanted, they weren't matched with the right kid. You know, I've had a lot of people that we've tried to fit into our programs because we don't have a lot of high school age mentoring programs, but people always want to help high school students, right? They want to do that more career readiness type of stuff. And we'd be like, oh, well, why don't you just get paired up with a middle schooler? Because like, then they'll become a high schooler and then like, you know, and you can have that relationship with them, blah, blah, blah. And then again, less than a year happens and then they stop mentoring because that's not what they wanted, but we force them into it. And so I think knowing that not every volunteer is right for you, and how can you then help other programs, right? I always say if a volunteer chooses a program, no matter what program it is that does mentoring, kids win in the end. And I think we have to have that mentality that like, yes, we're all vying for the same resources, but a mentor may not be good for your program. It may be better for another.
Along that same line too, I'm a big fan of building kind of a menu of engagement sort of, and whether it's like formal or informal, it's just what are all the ways that an individual can plug into your organization? Volunteering obviously is one, and what does that look like? But then what are other ways? Do you need supply donations? Like, hey, we have an Amazon list, so that's a quick touch point. Donating, that's a quick touch point. Can you host a lunch and learn, or can you help to raise awareness? Those are all things, to our point, is kind of like theme today of the long game. Every touch point matters, and nothing is a failure. If you can share that information, and let's say you're taking someone through your talk and you're like, look, I really want you to volunteer, and they don't, but maybe they'll make a donation, or maybe they'll clear something off your Amazon list, or whatever it is. So whether you have something formal as far as like, hey, look, check out our website on our ways to give page, like here's all the different ways you can get involved. It's about having that ready, taking people through that continuum, and they'll find a way to plug in that makes sense for them at that moment, and hopefully they'll continue. You take one step, hopefully you can help them take a second step. So I think that's a really important perspective to bring to this too, is that every touch point matters, and everything that you're doing. You may not walk away with a volunteer that day, but maybe you planted a seed for later, or maybe they'll find a way to plug in, in the immediate until they convert to a bigger ask.
Christian, and to your point, Tom and I have been really telling people when we go out that number one, volunteering is a privilege, it's not a right. So that's a really important part. I think that people just think they can sign up to be a big for us and a volunteer and mentor, and that's not the case. That's a pretty thorough vetted process for us. A second part that we do that's important is we do something that is, there's two things that sets us typically that we do is a match presentation. So every party gets a little bit of background, and they can say yes or no what they're told about the little, the big, and the family. The second part is something that we do, which is called match support. So every single match has a case manager that for the first year of the match, they check in with every party every month, and then quarterly, but that match has access to that match. They call it a match support specialist throughout the length of the match to talk about, strategy, celebrate the wins, help with the challenges. That is also something that's important. I think that people lose sight that once they're matched, they still need that support through the agency. And then the second part that is, those of you that are on the call in Pittsburgh, it's a very philanthropic town. So there's, 5 million different nonprofits to volunteer with. So Tom and I have been really telling people that I don't expect every single person that in this room to be a good big, want to be a big, but if we can be that person that voice that says, hey, let me see what else I can do. Maybe I'm really into animals. I can go sit and walk dogs at the animal shelter. If we can be that voice to kind of get you involved, Christian, to your point of like, I think Chris said that working together. I don't want to take that from somebody else. I don't expect every single person, nor do I want every single person to be a big. Like I said, not every person's going to be a great volunteer, but if we can be that person that sets them in the right direction to help the future in some other way, we're happy to be that person. So just some thoughts.
No, I think you're 1,000% right on all fronts, right? So like Pittsburgh, it's a big little city. So, and I think we all have really good working relationships, which is great. So if we can be that catalyst for connections to other organizations, right? Like we don't want people that aren't a good fit for our organization, right? Because it won't be a good experience for them. It won't be a good experience for us, but most importantly, it won't be a good experience for the youth. So I think definitely that's a great mentality is, hey, we want to help you connect with the right fit. So if it's not us, that's okay. We'll help you. We'll connect you with someone else. And then match support, Maggie, that's music to my ears too. I think that's something that's really important is the work doesn't stop once they're matched and once the match is kind of launched, right? I mean, there's that ongoing checking in. There's always going to be things that come up and questions that come up, wins to celebrate. So regular check-ins and having a process for that is hugely important, just to make sure that, again, mentors don't feel like they're on their own. That's one of the big barriers we hear about is like, I don't know what to do. And I feel like, like I'll just be matched with this kid and then that's it. Like we'll just be sitting in a room looking at each other and we won't know what to do. And it's like, no, like all our programs have really good match support strategies in place. So you'll always have someone so that if something does come up, they don't feel alone or ill-equipped to deal with something.
then you also want to look at your marketing materials. So, we're always looking for mentors of color, right? And so do your recruitment materials, do they reflect that, right? Do they welcome people in? I was just talking with a program that is called Inspiring Minds, and they're a tutoring mentoring program. And so they're like, okay, well, we want more mentors of color. And I'm like, okay, but if I'm thinking about what tutoring is, and like maybe that I don't think that I could be a good tutor, maybe I don't think I'm smart enough, maybe I don't think I was good enough in school, right? Like there are lots of things that come into play there. And so do your materials reflect, right, having people of color on them, or right, that they are right, just welcoming in different languages, right? If we want mentors who are bilingual. So there's just lots of things to think about there when we're looking at just the materials that we're giving people. I think about Big Brothers Big Sisters, who did a huge, right, rebranding of their entire organization, right, from changing their color from purple to green because they wanted more male mentors, and they thought, well, purple isn't how we're going to get more male mentors, right? Like that is a whole to do there, right, of looking at that. So
It's
again,
also much nicer to put things together, black and green versus purple people. It's
right.
When you're trying to like plan things, I'm like, oh, black and green's a little bit better. Yeah, they did a lot of, Chris, as you mentioned, they did a lot of rebranding on that. A lot of research on, before it was the Big B, if you guys aren't familiar, those on the call, it was these two little people that made a heart. And when they did the research, there was probably a dozen other agencies that had these little people with some sort of heart on them. That was like, you couldn't differentiate, let alone people still think we're Boys and Girls Club. And we're like, they're great. They do great work, but we do nothing the same. So it was interesting when they actually like nationally went in to look at the actual work, that like what a logo does confuses people to begin with. So just, yeah, Chris, you're exactly right. They did spent a lot of time. We spent a lot of money on the rebranding. But I think Tom will attest to, as going out, he'd rather wear green and black versus these two little purple people on them, I'm sure. So it has definitely helped the agents. I'm sorry, Tom?
You don't know
that. Christine.
Oh, yeah. I was already curious about this, but I wasn't sure if there was room for it in this discussion, but this kind of segued. When we're talking about recruitment, and I know that at Strong Women, we're having discussions about what recruitment will look like and who we will welcome into our program based on how things are changing as far as gender and inclusiveness and things like that. So I'm curious, especially, I think all of us in the room are matching based on gender. I'm curious what other people are, what's the language around that? What are your policies? What's happening there? Even what's your marketing? What does that look like? I'm curious about that, if anyone's willing to share.
Yeah, we actually have Tom, or I could speak on it. We launched last June a Big Siblings program. So it's matching LGBTQ youth with LGBTQ volunteers based on gender preferences. It's actually called Big Siblings because Big Brothers Big Sisters is not inclusive enough to encompass that. So there is a whole different logo for that. It's been strategic in hiring in that space. We hired somebody in the community. They have their own special programming. They have their own interview, all that. So it was very strategically done in terms of that. So we do match on that. Seldomly do we match. We always do male to male. Sometimes, depending on the situation, we will do female big to male little. But that is very, very rare, and that depends on the situation. Tom, am I missing any points on that?
No, I think you're good.
Yeah, so that's the answer to your question. We did start that last year. We worked for you guys because you're local. We worked with Lane, and they've been extremely helpful. The staff was trained through them. So when the staff was talking with community members, talking with families, they were using the right verbiage. We weren't insulting. We were educating the staff. So if you're looking for a contact, please let me know. They've been really helpful for us.
And I go back to, what are the goals and structures of your program, right? What are you trying to do, and what does that look like? A lot of gender-based organizations right, are making more, are having more inclusive language, right, and talking about female identifying, right, or non-binary, right, like we're choosing those two pockets, right, of people. And so just trying to figure out what that looks like. But what are the goals and structures of your program, right? In your program, when they go to your site, what does it say? What is the goal? What is the mission statement of your organization, right? And so those types of things are just so crucial in figuring out, okay, well then how do you then create recruitment materials around that, or what that looks like? What are we trying to do? You know, are you trying to match, right, girls that are in college, right, with these elementary school students, right, at these sites? And like, what is the goal of that, right? What are you trying to do, right? And so I just get into those pieces of just really program development and what do you want out of it, right? Because you can make it anything you want. That's the best part. Oh, yes, Rebecca, sorry.
Yeah, so I have a question to the last person who spoke, who said I think I heard it correctly, so fix me if I'm wrong. They very rarely match a female mentor with a male mentee. Did I hear that correctly?
That is correct.
Okay, can you please help me understand that? Because I actually, I have a whole preference thing I go through with my mentors and a whole preference thing I go through with my mentees. And I actually have a couple self-identifying gay boys who are asking for female mentors. What is your feedback on that?
That's why Big Siblings exists, number one. That's a great opportunity for them to be involved in that program. And that's why interviews happen specifically for that, Rebecca, is to interview for preferences. So if that's something that the little is looking for and we have a big that can fit the needs of that, we are happy to match that. It just does not always happen, but that's part of the preferential questions. Everybody in big, little, family, everyone gets preferential requests in the application and in the interview to make the best match possible. So yes, you are correct. I would never steer someone if that's what they're interested in and that's the best match for them. We are happy to accommodate that as best as we can.
Okay, all right, great. Thank you for that. Because I'm like, oh my God, am I doing something wrong? Because okay, all right, good. I appreciate that because
Sure.
we definitely go through that with every prospective mentee and every prospective mentor, and we have very thorough discussions. I'm fortunate to have a colleague in the LBGQ plus community who is also willing to help me. He doesn't work. He doesn't work in my agency, but I hired him years ago where I used to work, and now he's doing other stuff. And so we've remained friends, but he's very, very, very active in the community, and he, helps me out. So I've got some professional guidance there, if you will. So no, I appreciate that feedback because I was like, oh no, what am I doing?
No.
Okay, thank you.
And I also go back to, again, the structures and goals of a program. So we actually had a program that we were running where we were working with our AAA baseball team, our organization here, the Paw Sox. And we actually had their staff were mentoring. But part of it was a lot of male staff because it was a baseball team. And so they were actually matched with, there were more female mentees, which you never hear about matching male mentors with female mentees. But the point of the program, right, was to get more girls involved in sports, right? And so because they all met at the same time at the school, all 20 of them would walk over, right? Like that's what they were doing. And so it was a lot of that gender swapping in that specific program because that's what we were trying to do and that's what we wanted to do. So again, looking at the goals and structures of your program, what do mentors and mentees want, right? That all comes down to it. And I mean, you should have seen some of these relationships. They were just wonderful to see how much it was lovely. It was just so lovely. So again, I always go back to leaning on those things of, again, goals and structures of your program and what you're hoping to get out of it. Maggie, we're going to say something.
Nope, not this time.
Okay,
good.
sorry. You were unmuted. You were unmuted. So
Sorry.
I just didn't know if you were going to say something. Other questions? We have about 15 minutes. So I just don't know if any other particular questions or things that you'd like answers to or things that you'd like us to discuss. Hopefully this has been helpful.
Well, I'll just say that I guess being here today with this group has helped reinforce that I'm doing some stuff pretty decent. It's interesting because I am just my agency is not just a mentor agency. We are a very broad base. We're actually across the entire state of Pennsylvania, just about, except a couple counties. And we're in different states. We're in Ohio and Colorado and Florida, and I don't know, some other places. And I'm just one little program within our agency in Chester County, Pennsylvania. And so, you know, sometimes I get a little jealous because I listen to you guys and you're just mentoring programs. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you know, it just sounds so like, you know, apple pie and whipped cream and flowers, you know, and sometimes I get a little jealous because there's such a solid, direct focus on everything. And you've got 75 people doing different things. I'm the coordinator, the recruiter, the awareness, the matcher, the monthly supervisor, the finance person overseeing the budget. I'm it all. I'm the only person running the program. And so thank you, you know, for all the input. Like I've been sitting here steadily writing notes in my little book, and I've definitely gotten some tidbits. I really appreciate, and I'm so sorry, sir, that I forget your name from Big Brothers Big Sisters. About the I forget your name because it just says BBS on the bottom of your ID, and but about the part of identifying, you know, single Black families that are raised by a single female, which is very often what I'm dealing with, and not to do that father figure, not a brother figure thing. I think that's going to be really helpful, and I appreciate that. And so I just want to say thanks, because I've gotten lots of little tidbits here that I think I can take back.
So Rebecca, what's really great for you though, is that you are part of a larger agency and that you can use those people in the agency to also help you to recruit, right? Because they know people. Yeah. And so if you can help them to understand who are you looking for, who's the best person, right? It's creating that recruitment team and having those people in place that can help you to do this recruitment.
You're so sweet, Chris. That was so sweet of you to say. I have tried that strategy and I have not had much fruit come from that tree. But thank you for the reminder of that, because maybe I'm going to try it again. Yep.
And what's great is that hopefully in the orchard there's lots of trees, right? So that's one tree that you might get one apple from, right? But you know, clearly we got lots of apples over here in the mentoring field. Little did I know, and the whipped cream and the flowers. That's not real nice, Rebecca. I love that.
Here's the thing to remember too, I think, is there isn't one like silver bullet strategy that works for recruitment. It's the same across the board. When I talk to people about messaging and marketing and fund development, there isn't one thing that is guaranteed to work for everyone. That's what makes it really hard. So it really is about trial and error, as much as we wish we could just say, you know what, here's what we're going to do. It's going to work. And we're going to meet, you know, all of our needs that we set out, all the goals that we set. It's about trial and error. And the great thing about it is if we see something that's not working, we can pivot. And we don't need to wait until, you know, the end of a campaign or whatever. I think, you know, that's one of the good things about being smaller organizations, is that you have a little bit more leeway to be nimble. If things aren't working, you can backtrack and try something else. So I think that's important to just remind ourselves that it's okay to try something new, and it's okay if it doesn't work. We can kind of retool that and rethink that, and not be so afraid to kind of, you know, embrace that mindset of like, oh no, like we're on the path and we're sticking to it. Like you know, let's try it. And if it doesn't work, let's adjust.
And that's the thing is like, I love hearing like what you're already doing, which is why I asked you earlier, because that was a great jumping off point because you're not doing things wrong, but it's doing it with intentionality. That's what it needs to happen, right? You need to be intentional about who you're recruiting and who you're going after. And again, not just trying to recruit everybody, you going after specific groups who have specific goals and specific reasons of why they want to be in your program. And so figuring out that is really going to be beneficial. There's something else you said, Kristen, that I wanted to talk about, and I don't remember what it was.
Sorry, I don't know.
I think I also wrote down social media because I think someone had mentioned social media as a recruitment thing. And that's really great. Those mass communications are great kind of catch-alls. It gets the message out again and again and again, but it's not the best as, again, a direct ask. Oh, and it just went in my head and it went right back out again, everybody. Oh, I remember. So when you're talking to people, right? So you're going to have the what I call like the brain people and the heart people. So a heart person, you're going to tell a story, a really compassionate story about mentoring and how this changes young person's life and what that's done and all of that. And that's going to get somebody to mentor. And then you're going to have the brain person, right? Who's like, okay, well, tell me about the numbers, right? How does this all work? And you're like, okay, well, if you do this, kids are like 20 times more likely to do this, or they're, 50% more likely to attend school, or they're, right? So you got to figure out who you're talking to and which angle you use with them to get that. It's a lot of that social psychology piece that I was talking about earlier, and really just understanding people and how people respond to certain stuff. And I kind of have all my stuff in the back pocket.
Yeah, that's helpful not just for recruitment too. We talk about that in the fund development space, right? Like understanding your donors. It's all understanding motivations, whether you're asking someone to sign up to volunteer, to give, or if you're asking someone just to, receive the message and learn more about it. It's understanding the motivation and what's going to resonate with people. And that is not something that happens overnight. Again, unfortunately, and again, go into that long game is like there are a lot of different ways to go about that, but it's not something that you can just, sit in a room and talk to someone for a minute and say, yep, you're a brain person, so I'm going to lead with stats. Like you have to get to know your audience. You have to get to know who you're talking about to understand what really motivates them. So it's all about those little kind of drops in the bucket. And somebody else said something too. I think it was going back to what we were talking about with Rebecca about, you have access to people in your network. Equip them with information to tell the story. This goes back to, utilizing your brand ambassadors, even if it's as simple as drafting a Facebook post that people could copy and paste and share on their page. That's it takes 2 seconds. I'm going to copy and paste this. I'm going to share it on my page. At the very least, that's something actionable that people can do to help spread the word. It doesn't hurt. So we do that a lot where, it's an easy ask. It's a light lift. Can you please share this out on your networks or share this on, LinkedIn or wherever? It just helps, again, to build the number of people that are telling your story and also kind of get that repetition in people's minds where it's like, oh, I heard about that from someone else too. So thinking about easy ways that you can activate your network. Got about 5 minutes left. So any other thoughts, questions, things for the good of the group? We will be making this recording available after the fact, so you will get that. But again, if you have any other questions for us for the mentoring partnership, you can reach out by email. I know Christopher, his email address is on their website as well, and I'm sure he's more than happy to. I'm volunteering you to answer any questions that people have after the fact, Christopher. But anything else as parting thoughts here? Oh, there we go. Thank you for putting your email in the chat, Christopher.
Well, I just wanted to say to Chris that I was at the National Mentoring Conference in Washington, D.C., and it was nice to see Chris present. So it was really awesome. The energy level was incredible, and as was the whole conference. So if other people on here haven't been to that, you need to get your fannies there because it's amazing. Yeah.
Thank you for that plug, Rebecca. Yeah, Chris is actually leaving this call to go present on a call about leading workshops for the National Mentoring Summit, which is awesome. But yeah, so the summit always happens in January in DC. There are some options to plug in virtually, but obviously you can attend in person too. So definitely as the year goes on, look for more information on that. But I'm glad to hear that you found that helpful, Rebecca. Any other thoughts? All right. Well, thank you all for being here today. And like I said, don't hesitate to reach out with any questions or anything, and we will share resources from today. And yeah, just have a wonderful day. Thank you all so much.